Hello, Command229 here. I probably should have done this a while ago, but I need to rant about the live-action Bleach movie and how freaking terrible it is. Oh my gosh. Look, the live-action Fullmetal Alchemist movie was awful. I think this Bleach movie might be worse. I was really heated about this movie. I watched it, I think a couple months ago. And, oh my gosh, like, I wasn't looking forward to this, especially after the Fullmetal Alchemist movie. I was just like...
No. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. 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 Hell no. 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 I refuse. No. No.
I mean, but when I first heard about this, I was just like, really? After all this time, we're going to do a Bleach movie? I'm like, why should I even care? The trailer looked like trash. I'm like, ugh. So some people were like, hey, I want to know what your thoughts on the movie are. So I watched it, and I'm like, ugh, and I suffered through that stupid movie. Okay. You know how a Fullmetal Alchemist movie tried to at least make the characters look like the characters? For the most part, you can tell that they tried. At least, when it comes to the costuming, the way the characters looked. They gave Riza and Ed, blonde hair. They made the characters dress like them. And okay, I would say at least they all look like decent cosplays. In this, they barely even try. Just, okay, so Ichigo, he kind of looks like he's got the hair, alright, so that's fine. But Masaki and young Ichigo in the flashbacks don't have orange hair, implying that Ichigo dyed his hair orange. One of the things about him in the manga is that he didn't dye his hair, he just had orange hair. So he was seen as a delinquent. That's what they do, like the delinquents dyeing their hair. It's a classic trope in Japanese media. But no, he wasn't. He got good grades, and, he had to do that stuff so that he made sure that he wasn't seen as a delinquent. Now he just dyes his hair. I mean, they don't really talk about this, but when you show him as a kid without orange hair, then you show him now with orange hair, the implication is that he dyed it. And Masaki doesn't have the orange hair either, so... Oh, and this is a problem that happens a lot in the movie. Do you know who these characters are? That's Tatsuki, and that's Orihime. They look nothing like their manga counterparts. Chad kinda looks like he does, so I at least give him that. Ishida, kinda. Urahara is one of the few characters that actually does, as does Renji. So in some of these characters that they tried, and some of them they tried and failed. I don't want to show you this horror, but this is what Byakuya looks like. Ugh. Look, Byakuya's hair is entirely impractical to do in live action, so if they changed it a bit, I wouldn't mind. But when you look at the Bleach musical, and you see that Byakuya looks pretty good in that. Why can't a movie do this? But one of the worst ones is Rukia. Rukia is the deuteragonist of the story. She's our secondary main character. And they couldn't even be bothered to make her look right. And it's not this actress's fault. I don't blame this actress at all. At all. I think she could have done a good job, and she could look the part if they gave her the right hair. Put a wig on her. Do something. Cosplayers make this work. I've seen some great Rukia cosplays. Some of them managed to totally nail the hair. They didn't even try. You're telling me you have a professional movie. Professionally made movie with people who handle costumes and hair and stuff, and they can't do this? When cosplayers on zero budget actually can? Bullcrap.
They didn't even try!
And that's something that really pisses me off about this movie, is that so much of it feels like they didn't even try. You actually have a lot of these side characters, and one of the issues I had with the Fullmetal Alchemist movie is that they completely ignored characters like Armstrong, a lot of Team Mustang. You had characters, King Bradley wasn't in the movie. They replaced him with this other, that's stupid. But in this, they have all of the side characters. Yoroichi is absent for some unfathomable reason. They don't even show a cat hanging around or something. That would have at least been suitable. But no, she's not in this. But you have all these characters, and they do nothing with them. Hey, you want to know about Chad and his history with Ichigo, how they became friends, his Mexican heritage, his pacifistic nature, and the fact that he'll fight for his friends, but he doesn't like it. He would rather just protect rather than directly fight. Absent. The first thing they show him in is just beating some guy up to help Ichigo, which I'm not saying he wouldn't fight a guy to help Ichigo, but when that's your first impression of this guy who's supposed to be a pacifist, no. Wrong. They don't include the whole story with the parakeet and the kid. They don't have any of that in this. There's nothing for Chad to do outside of show up in a couple of scenes in the movie, and that's it. What about Orihime? Does she get her story with her brother? Nope, it's completely absent in the movie. Why even have her in then? What about Orihime's friendship with Tatsuki? Yeah, no, we don't get that either. So you don't get the great backstory about why they're friends. You don't get the whole thing where Orihime starts showing her powers. In fact, none of the supporting cast actually get powers. And I'll talk about this a little bit later when it comes to the Soul Society arc. Because that's a big issue with this. And with Tatsuki, do you get anything on her friendship with Ichigo? The fact that they're childhood friends? The fact that she knows him better than pretty much anyone else? Nah. She's literally just Orihime's friend in this. And that's it. Her in being into martial arts, her friendship with Orihime, her friendship with Ichigo. It's just none of it's in here. The fact that she's sort of friends with Ichigo is about all you get. In fact, that's what all these characters get. Orihime, Chad, Tatsuki, that's it. You only really know, well, I guess they're kind of friends with Ichigo. That's really all you get. And the other classmates that they have, I think they might be in the movie. But if they are, they just show up for one scene, and again, none of them actually look like they're supposed to, so it's difficult to figure out any of this. It's like I'm not expecting them to adapt everything one-to-one. Look, if they had to cut some things out, or rearrange some things, I'm totally fine with that. And I talked about this with the Fullmetal Alchemist movie. I get it. When you have all the whole substitute arc to adapt, look, I don't mind them cutting out some things, because, I don't mind if they cut that story out. I don't mind if they rearrange some things. But there's some things that you should keep. And again, I'll talk about some of the stuff a little bit later and how it would affect the future of this hypothetical series. But no, none of these side stories are actually in. The only one that they even bother trying to keep at all is the fact that Ishida reveals himself to Ichigo and then challenges him. And they can't even do that right. Ishida's challenge does happen. He talks about being a Quincy. Then he baits all those Hollow to come in, just like he did in the manga. Ichigo goes out to fight him. And then Rukia is like, stop Ichigo, you need to make a decision to help everyone.
Come back! You have to protect all spirits and people, not just this one boy. Huh? Reapers treat all spirits and people equally.
It's like that whole speech that she gave him before in the manga, telling him that he can't just focus on who he wants, or who's in front of him, and who's convenient. And it's like, no. She starts delivering this in the middle of this challenge. It's like, okay, no, he needs to go and fight all those Hollow. This isn't just one Hollow. It's like, why are you doing this? And then Renji shows up. Oh yes, did I forget to mention that? Renji and Byakuya are consistent characters in this movie. Renji shows up, and then they go like, "Brah, Rukia, you look like a human." And he's like, whoa. At this point, maybe it's been a couple of weeks. If he said that line at the end of the movie, after Rukia spent so much time with Ichigo and everyone else, that would make more sense. But now, It's like, and they spoiled their big reveal. They were showing Renji and Byakuya before, and then they keep showing up throughout the movie. Look, one of the biggest things about their characters, at least in the substitute arc, is that they just show up out of nowhere and take Rukia. That's kind of a big deal. They show up at the end and completely shake up the status quo. You had gotten used to how things were. They go on and fight hollows, maybe something a little serious, you have some funny stuff, but you got kind of used to it. And then, boom, Byakuya and Renji show up. They beat the snot out of Ichigo, and then they take Rukia. Rukia leaves to protect Ichigo, sacrificing herself to save Ichigo. No, they don't do that properly. It's like you can't do it when you spoil them. And they even show Soul Society in the movie. Movie, can you do nothing right?
Does your incompetence know no bounds?
Some of the things in this movie are really accurate. Very few things. Rukia's glove, of all things, that's accurate. The way Urahara looks, alright. But then most everything else is just totally out of whack. Ichigo's family suffers really badly from this. Like, this is Karen and Yuzu. They're literal identical twins here. They don't look any different. They pretty much talk the same. They both have that sort of deadpan attitude. Yuzu even has some of Karen's lines. And Ishin? Oh my gosh. First of all, I don't even think they mentioned the Kurosaki Clinic at all. Ishin has some of the weirdest moments in this movie because it feels like they don't even know what they want to do. Like, he comes up and puts Ichigo in a chokehold, but then they try to play a lot of his scenes like serious, even if they weren't supposed to be. Look, Ishin as a character is totally ridiculous. He is over the top, extremely expressive, and just totally wacky. But in here, they try to make a lot of this stuff more serious. Like, remember that one part where he has this giant poster of Misaki and he's just like, "No, my wife." They take that and turn it into a deeply somber moment.
Masaki, where did I go wrong, honey?
I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And this really messes up a lot of the stuff with Ishin, because one of the only wacky things he does is attack Ichigo. Everything else is played pretty seriously. So he comes off being almost abusive. And it's like, no, it's supposed to be that he's weird and that everyone's fighting each other, but they don't do any of this stuff. When Ichigo first meets Rukia, this is actually the first scene in the movie where Rukia shows up. And Ichigo's just sort of mildly confused of, oh, look, there's someone in my room.
Crispin Freeman, get out of my bedroom!
He doesn't kick her, they don't fight, they don't argue. It's so muted. This dynamic between them is so terrible that, I mean, even the few scenes that they have that could work are so unenjoyable because of how garbage this movie is. Ichigo doesn't have nearly enough attitude to be like his manga counterpart. Rukia at times just feels boring and bland. And even some scenes that they could have made work just are so unenjoyable because you have to sit through this garbage movie and it's like, okay, well, here's a kind of nice scene. I mean, one of the only scenes that I unironically enjoyed was when they're doing some of the training and Rukia is just beating Ichigo with the wooden sword. It's like, okay, that could work. They even mess up one of the most iconic scenes, the "make a scene and you're so dead" scene. When I was watching the movie, I thought they would pull this off. I thought, okay, maybe they'll actually manage to do this. Nope. Rukia comes in, and you think she's going to put her hand out and have the message written on it. No, she grabs Ichigo, grabs a book, and then flips this book to a specific page and it has the "make a scene and you're dead" on it. How do you mess this up? Why would you do it like this? Why? And I think I realized why they made this change, no matter how stupid it is, at the end of the movie, which makes it even dumber, is that after Rukia leaves, Ichigo forgets Rukia like everyone else. Okay, sure, I guess their bond doesn't mean much, but whatever. So he picks up this book, he flips it open, and he sees that scene, and it's like, oh, well, this is what makes him remember Rukia. What? Are you serious? You changed an iconic scene so that you could have some stupid cliffhanger?
Sounds bad.
Look, if you wanted to end it on that note, have Ichigo go to Urahara, and then Urahara would say, I can help you get to Soul Society. And then you cut off there. If you wanted to do that. You don't do this. It's stupid. And it's making all these pointless changes. But speaking of pointless changes, you have some minor stuff that's stupid. Rukia doesn't have a tracking cell phone. She's got this tracking magic stone, which I don't know why you would make that change. You got Rukia's hair.
Huh?
Yeah, that's stupid. But they completely screw up memories in the brain.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
You see, for some reason, they thought this iconic storyline, one of the best parts of the substitute arc, they thought that they could just chop it up and sprinkle it throughout the movie.
Disappointed!
Are you freaking serious? Great scenes like where Rukia tells Ichigo that she's not going to force him to say anything personal, particularly about his mother. She's going to wait for him to tell her when he's ready. Not in the movie. That great build-up to the actual reveal that it's the anniversary of Misaki's death. No.
Yeah, it's nearly the anniversary of her death.
That great scene with Ichigo and Ishin at the grave. It's not in. They completely butchered this storyline, and I have no idea what they were thinking. Look, you can't just sprinkle this stuff in. It's part of a singular story. Now, I'm not opposed to there being some changes made to that arc. If you need to change it a little bit, alright, that's fine. If you want to have, like, Chad or Rukia help fight, you know what, that's fine. But don't butcher the story. Don't butcher Memories in the Rain and sprinkle it in. Because you have certain lines said throughout, and it's like, no. They even drop Ishin's line when he tells Ichigo, the woman I love died to save you.
The love of my life died protecting you.
They do it in a completely different spot before they actually do the Memories in the Rain stuff. Why even bother? Why even bother doing it? And speaking of how they butcher this, they try to make Grand Fisher bigger and more important than he actually is. Okay, the anime did something similar to this and made Grand Fisher some sort of planner or mastermind, whatever. It was stupid. Alright? But that's nowhere near as bad as this. Because they center the entire plot around Grand Fisher. Rukia was out looking for Grand Fisher.
The Grand Fisher? No. Fishbone.
Renji and Byakuya want to find Grand Fisher.
He's merely the bait to lure the Grand Fisher.
And there's this plot line about, trying to kill him. Okay. Why? The point about Grand Fisher is that he's important to Ichigo and, the Kurosakis. But, specifically focused on Ichigo since he's the main character. It revolves around Misaki. It loses that impact when you have him just related to everyone else. When everyone else is trying to get Grand Fisher, it completely destroys the actual personal beef that Ichigo has with it. And as much as I disagree with it as a strategic decision, Ichigo's desire to fight Grand Fisher on his own, no matter how stupid and something that no one should have really been listening to, character-wise, it's understandable because Ichigo's got this personal beef. He wants to take Grand Fisher on himself. But no, Grand Fisher is important. And they make Grand Fisher the finale. They have Ishida come in to help fight, which I guess is kind of neat for a little bit. And then they kill Grand Fisher.
That's how Mafia works?
Ichigo kills Grand Fisher in the end of the movie. He didn't kill Grand Fisher. It's kind of important. Grand Fisher ran off. Ichigo wasn't strong enough to actually beat Grand Fisher. It's so stupid. And at the end of the movie, Ichigo fights Renji. And not only does Ichigo hold his own against Renji, he starts kicking butt. He manages to break Renji's Zanpakuto. Even after Renji activates the Shikai, Ichigo manages to break it. Ultimately he loses, but he shouldn't be able to fight that well against Renji. They couldn't even get that right? Are you serious? Look, it's far more effective to just have Ichigo get the crap kicked out of him. And then him being unable to do anything. When Rukia steps in and tells him to, go away, I hate you, I don't ever want to see you again, and goes off because she's trying to protect him, it doesn't really hold as much meaning when Ichigo can actually fight really well against Renji. Another thing I forgot to mention from early on in the movie, when Rukia gets hurt and she gives her powers to Ichigo, her injury doesn't seem nearly as bad as it actually was, in the manga. So her giving her powers to Ichigo doesn't even seem reasonable. Like in here, it's like, okay, her arm gets kind of hurt. Okay, fine, whatever. But in the manga, she got bitten by the Hollow. So, yeah, she couldn't really do much of anything. That's why she gave some of her powers to him, and then ended up losing her powers. So it doesn't even make sense. And if I sound really jumbled up in my thoughts, it's only because this movie is jumbled up. I haven't even touched on everything that was wrong with this movie. I would honestly need so much longer to actually go through and dissect all the crappiness in this movie. You lack any of the side stories with the characters, none of the side characters. Not Chad, not Ishida, not Orihime, not Tatsuki. None of them get any stories. None of them get anything. None of them develop any powers. And let me actually talk about this for a little bit. This movie is so focused on setting up for a Soul Society arc sequel that it doesn't actually do any of the setup for the Soul Society arc. Look, Ichigo's friends develop powers. Well, some of them. Chad gets powers, Orihime gets powers, and then you meet, Ishida, and then they end up going to Soul Society to save Rukia. But they don't have any powers. They don't develop any powers. I mean, they showed Chad is super strong, but that's about it. Yoruichi's not in it. So for a hypothetical sequel, what would they do? Just have them conveniently go, alright guys, you all develop powers, let's go to Soul Society. I mean, it seems like something that they would do. But all that setup, all the development that you have with Ichigo and Rukia, it's barely there. They only vaguely touch on Ichigo's backstory, and his relationship to everyone is pretty much nothing. So all these bonds that are formed, and all the stuff that we get to see and we get attached to over the course of the Substitute arc, it's just not there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do care about Rukia, and her being executed is a big deal. But she's not really friends with anyone else. So what are they going to do? They kept showing Renji and Byakuya and talking about Soul Society and stuff. Okay, yeah. We learn about this in the Soul Society arc. We don't need to see Soul Society. We don't need to see Byakuya and Renji this much. What, so, no, seriously, what would they do? They've already trashed all the setup for the Soul Society arc. And they're even like, oh yeah, you can just get into Soul Society arc from anywhere. It's like, no. Urohara had to construct that door to get to Soul Society. Just, stupid. All the actual important stuff is totally cut out. And what do they fill it with? Filler! Stuff that doesn't even mean anything. They rearrange all the stuff that's actually important. It's like they took the Substitute arc, they threw it into a blender, grinded it up until it's nothing, and just dumped it out and be like, okay, I guess that's our story. There's no sense to this. They don't keep the important stuff that would be helpful for building the characters and the storylines to go on into a Soul Society sequel. They just don't do it. It's like, just talking about Soul Society and showing some of the Shinigami is not development towards that. The sad part about this is that they actually could have done, at the very least, a somewhat competent movie on the substitute arc. If you ask me personally, I would say that you'd have to split this up into 2 movies. You'd have one movie that goes up to Memories in the Rain, so that way you could actually end it on the fight against Grand Fisher. But then you keep everything up to then. You may need to rearrange a few things in order to, fill everything out and even out between the 2 movies. But then you have the other movie picking up with a lot of the other stuff. And then you're introduced to Ishida properly and getting explanations about the Quincy and the Quincy genocide. And then you end that on Renji and Byakuya coming in. Look, you can make some cuts, and even doing 2 movies, you would have to make some cuts and some sacrifices here and there. But at the very least, that way, you could have actually done it some justice. And so by the time you get to the end of the second movie, it's like, okay, here we can then move on directly to the Soul Society arc, which you probably have to do a few movies on that. But it could be done. Taking this whole thing and stuffing it into a 2-hour movie, and then not even including the stuff that's actually important, is terrible. You need to have these side stories. You need to have the stuff with Chad. We need to have the stuff with Orihime. You need to have the stuff with Tatsuki. You need to have the stuff with Ishida. This stuff is important. Look, I'm not saying include every little side character, because, look, that one sidekick guy, the ha, you can cut that stuff. I mean, I do like his character, and I found him entertaining. But if you have to make some sacrifices, yeah, there are some things you can cut out. One thing I would not cut at all is Memories in the Rain. But having that be the finale of the first movie could really work. If you kept it in its entirety, you changed up a few things maybe here and there, make it work a little bit better. But you could have done this, and it infuriates me watching this movie. It's like they didn't even try. And I haven't even touched on everything. I have barely even scratched the surface of all the things that are truly wrong with this movie. And that's absurd. I have a lot of complaints about the Fullmetal Alchemist live action movie. But the Bleach live action movie, gosh, I think I enjoyed it less. This movie might actually be worse than the Fullmetal Alchemist live action movie. It's just that bad. But this movie had so much potential to actually be good. It could have been decent if they tried, if they put in effort. They could have done something good. Bleach has been dead for years now. Especially after that absolute awful ending. Especially after the years of the manga being on a downward slope of quality. Doing a movie, it could have reinvigorated some excitement in the Bleach fandom. But all this does is just piss on Bleach even more. It's like the Soul Society arc and the Substitute arc are really good. And a lot of people consider that to be the peak of Bleach, particularly the Soul Society arc. But the Substitute arc is very fondly remembered. And having read that part of the manga relatively recently, I can say I actually really enjoyed it. But then they take it and they just butcher it in this movie. You're going to piss off people who do know the source material. And for the people who don't know the source material, well, they're just going to be lost. They won't know what's going on. They won't really know who is who, because the movie doesn't even bother actually explaining any of this. And the stuff that is there is so poorly done and so poorly executed that even people who aren't familiar with Bleach couldn't even enjoy this. Look, this movie is just bad. There's so few things that I can enjoy about this movie, and it was such a chore to watch. It was so much worse than the Fullmetal Alchemist movie to sit through, because even from the beginning, I just was not into this. At least the Fullmetal Alchemist movie tried in some ways. It still failed miserably, but at least there were parts that you can tell they tried. Here, there's definitely more to talk about with this movie, but I think I'm going to end it right here.